Good evening. I'm Rebecca Hawthorne, President of the League of Women Voters of the Wayzata Plymouth area. And I'd like to welcome our candidates, our audience, and our viewers on behalf of our host, the League of Women Voters, Wayzata Plymouth area. The League of Women Voters is a 103-year-old volunteer, nonpartisan organization that encourages informed and active participation of citizens in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. The League does not support or oppose any political party or candidates. The views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates, not of the League of Women Voters. It is our purpose in sponsoring forums such as this to provide you, the public, with the opportunity to hear the candidates discuss face-to-face the issues that are important to you. This is a nonpartisan forum. We ask that campaign buttons or campaign t-shirts not be worn or signs or literature distributed in this room. Please silence your electronic devices at this time. And now I'd like to introduce our moderator for this evening's forum, Peggy Quam, a member of the Minnetonka Eden Prairie Hopkins League of Women Voters.
Good evening. Tonight's forum is provided to give you the opportunity to learn about the candidates running for the Minnetrista City Council. There is never enough time to cover all the issues in a setting such as this. If your questions were not addressed, feel free to contact the candidates directly. The League of Women Voters posts complete, unedited recordings of forums. Editing is authorized only for official media reporting. Excerpts or edited clips of candidate forums may not be used for partisan political purposes. The rules for this evening's forum are as follows. Candidates will be allowed an opening statement with a maximum of 1 minute to state their experiences, platform, and objectives. A question and answer period will follow the opening statements. The answers will be confined to 1 minute unless designated by the moderator. Questions will be answered in a rotating order. A 15-second warning will be given to the candidates. The candidates will also be given a 2-minute closing statement. Candidates, please finish your sentence quickly when you see the stop sign or you will be interrupted. No reference of a personal nature will be tolerated. A person's public record may be examined, but not their character. The forum will be made available to encourage the voting public to focus on the issues, not on the personalities. We ask that there be no demonstrations in support or opposition to the candidates or their positions, and that candidates be allowed their full time to get their points across. The public has been encouraged to submit questions online in advance. For those in the audience, if you have a question, write it on a 3x5 card available from our volunteers and raise your hand to have it picked up. Questions that are unclear, hostile, or of a personal nature will not be used. Those that fall in the same general area may be consolidated. The candidates running for 2 seats on the Minnetrista City Council are Heather Charles, Claudia Lacey, Peter Vickery, and Jake Youngren. All candidates were invited to participate in the forum tonight. Candidate Claudia Lacey declined to attend. As stated in our candidate participation policy, we will proceed with candidates Heather Charles, Peter Vickery, and Jake Youngren. We will begin by asking the candidates to give introductory remarks, and we'll start with candidate Charles, and you have 1 minute for your remarks.
Okay, thank you. Well, hello, voters of Minnetrista. The question is, why would I run for city council after 2 years of bliss in retirement? The fact is that I love this city. I have lived here for almost 30 years, and the skills and the knowledge that I can offer and decades of executive management experience in budgeting, cost-benefit analysis, consulting, marketing, managing, and bringing people and teams together to achieve common goals. I can bring all of those to the job here. And I want to help maintain and support the outstanding quality of life that is afforded to all of us lucky enough to live in Minnetrista. We are blessed to be surrounded by natural beauty, extensive green canopy, clean air, clean water, open spaces, the lakes, and the suburban rural character of our city. I can help deliver positive outcomes for all the citizens here now and those who will live here in the future.
Thank you. Next, candidate Vickery.
Well, thank you. First, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity, as well as the City of Minnetrista. I have been on the Planning Commission for the last 7 years, the last 3 of which I've been the vice chairperson of the commission. During this time, I also worked on the Citizens Commission that developed our long-range plan, the 2040-year plan that develops the city. I've learned from that city government, it's crucial to have a very high-quality city government. And so that will be an objective for me. During my career, I work in financial services for over 35 years, and I think that experience of practicing fiscal responsibility every day will be of value to the city of Minnetrista. Thank you.
Thank you. And last, candidate Youngren.
Hi, my name is Jake Youngren. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting on this event. I'm a 2007 graduate of Mount Wisconsin Senior High School. I did my bachelor's education at the University of Wisconsin. I have degrees in political science and economics. I'm also a local business owner. I operate a manufacturing and service company here in Minnetrista. Minnetrista has been really good to us, good to me and my family. I think that my academic background as well as my professional expertise could be of great service to the city if I'm allowed to be. So thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you. Next, we'll start with the questions, and you will be answering in a rotating order. And you'll have 1 minute for each response. We're going to start with candidate Youngren. And the first question is, what do you see as the council's role in city government?
I believe that the city council is the steward of the people. We take care of your money. We make sure it's spent well. We make sure that we are doing the right things on your behalf. It's not something that that can operate without true collaboration between the council and the people. We need central vision, we need communication, we need to do the things that we're told to do. This is servant leadership, right? This is a thing that we follow the needs and wants of the people, pure and simple. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder, candidates, please speak into the mic, speak up so that we pick you up for the viewing audience. Next, candidate Vickery.
Well, thank you. I believe that the city council role is in governing and overseeing the staff.
Speak up a little louder.
Oh, okay, thank you. I believe that the city council role is to govern and oversee the efforts of the staff and make sure that those are effective and wisely use our tax dollars. I think the council should always be accountable to the public, and I think we would do that through the meetings. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next candidate, Charles.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of in agreement here that, our job on the council as a council member is to represent the wishes of the people and making sure that we know what their wishes are, reaching out to them, inviting open communication, and also, working as a team with everybody, with the city administration and with other council members, all to continue the vision that is here for Minnetrista.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question, we'll be starting with candidate Vickery. What do you see as the main issue facing the city of Minnetrista today? And with your 1 minute, you can also tell us how you'd like to deal with that.
Okay. Minnetrista is on the edge of the ever-expanding metro area. And so I think development is the number one issue and will be the number one issue into the future. My experience on the Planning Commission, I think, will prepare me well for that, as well as working out the long-term vision of the 2040 plan. We have spent quite a bit of time thinking about that and developing the different parts of the city with the idea of keeping the western part as rural. The northern part is already broken up into small hobby farms and homes, and then a development of our neighborhoods in the Highway 7 area will continue. And of course, that would be a natural commercial area since that's already developing in St. Bonifacius.
Thank you. Next, candidate Charles.
Can you read the question again?
Sure. What do you see as a main issue facing the city of Minnetrista today?
Yeah, I agree. I think it is the pressure of expansion of the cities, of the inner cities, and we've had a significant increase in our population over the last 10 years. And that brings a lot of pressure on doing the development right and making sure that infrastructure is in place and thinking ahead on infrastructure and planning ahead. I did dig into the 2040 plan, and I think it's pretty good. I think the city's got a pretty good plan together to handle that kind of pressure. And I think in conjunction with that, it's important still to keep our green spaces. And I'm thinking of that in terms of climate. We have, a lot of tree canopy, and as we all know now, trees are very important to air quality. So it's balancing that. It's balancing, the environment and development.
You can finish your sentence and the stop sign goes up. You don't have to stop instantly.
That big red sign.
Thanks. And finally, candidate Youngren.
I think that all of these things are based in the development, the infrastructure. These are things that need to be quantified, right? The technology implementation, the ERP that's being put into place, that's currently being implemented, allows us access to meaningful data that will allow for better planning in development, into infrastructure, into when we do things, how we do them, and what is coming in 5 years, and 10 years, and 20 years, and 30 years, right? So I think the most important thing is to implement those technologies that allow us to measure the things that we're talking about. Macro plans are great, but if you don't have the data to implement those things, you can't do much, or you can't do it in a meaningful way, in my opinion.
Thank you. So our next question is on water infrastructure, and we're going to be starting with candidate Youngren. The city's water infrastructure has been on the forefront lately. What are some of your ideas to assure that the city can continue to deliver adequate and quality water to all of the city's water users?
I think the city's doing a really good job with that implementation. The additional wells, the new water tower that was recently put into place, the water treatment facility that's in process. I think we are adapting really well. And I think we are listening and responding to the needs of the community in a really meaningful way. So I support what the council is currently doing with the expansion of water, with the expansion of our infrastructure, and with the maintenance and repair of existing water infrastructure.
Thank you. Next candidate Vickery.
Thank you. Well, our water infrastructure is paid for by new residents to the community. New developers pay fees, their connection fees, and then of course their monthly fees for the water service. So that is very well funded. We have just completed the new water tower, as the candidate mentioned. The city is also rehabilitating or considering rehabilitating 2 older wells to produce more water, and they're working on a development of a water purification plant as well. So I think that we do have a good handle on that. But surprisingly, Minnetrista, with all its lakes, actually it does use too much water for individuals. And so I think we need to work on education so that people reduce their water consumption.
Thank you. And finally, candidate Charles.
Yes, well, I think we're all in agreement here that, Minnetrista several years ago did go through a lot in dealing with water quality issues, and they really have gotten a handle on it. I think they're doing pretty well with it and are thinking ahead. They're doing some test drills and getting water quality reports on those test drills, thinking ahead for future development. And again, I agree with Peter on the water usage. It is a little high here in the summer. And so I do think that maybe there needs to be more education about landscapes that take less water. I think that would help with the water usage, and make it cool to have a low water usage landscape.
Thank you. Moving on to another question, we'll be starting with candidate Charles. The city of Minnetrista is covered by 2 fire departments from Mound and St. Bonifacius. With the future growth of Minnetrista, what options will you consider to address increased service calls?
Yeah, well, I think, that's something to maybe look at and plan for in the future, because if our population keeps growing, and Minnetrista is big, it's a wide area, and St. Bonnie and Mound may not be able to handle all the calls anymore. And so what do? We have to look at that and weigh our options. It could be a problem. It could be an expensive solution if we have to establish our own fire department. But that's for future planning. That's planning for the future. I mean, how much growth are we going to have? Those are all questions that we have to ask.
Thank you. Next, candidate Youngren.
Yeah, I think the expansion of potential Minnetrista specific fire departments should definitely be a part of the conversation. I think that in growing something like double property value and trying to hit Met Council density requirements, that comes with a lot of extra service needs. And I think that we've been really, really lucky that Mound is really, really, really good at fire. They're a phenomenal outfit. And St. Bonnie, they're part of the community, right? These guys care. They're volunteer firefighters. They're doing it because they're providing a service to us, not to make a bunch of money or for the pensions, but because they're trying to protect the community. So an expansion, or at least a conversation about Minnetrista's fire, it needs to be a part of the conversation, short or long term.
Thank you. Candidate Vickery.
Thank you. Well, I believe that the City Council is considering, or at least thinking about, possibly putting in a fire station in the southern part of the city, which would be complicated because, of course, the fire departments are from these other cities. But that may be one realistically, from a cost standpoint, solution, since a lot of our population is in that area. Another solution, of course, would be for us to provide more support to those communities, which again, I think would be very cost effective.
Thank you. For our next question, we'll be starting with candidate Vickery. What do you see as the greatest challenges facing businesses in Minnetrista, and what role should the City Council have in supporting businesses?
Well, of course, we have very little business in Minnetrista. And as I mentioned earlier, we have zoned property along Highway 7 for businesses. And I'm pleased to tell you, you may know already, but we are planning to have a grocery store in the Woodland Cove area, which will also have a coffee shop, which is much needed in Minnesota, or Minnetrista. So I think that'll serve as a gathering point too. But I think our role is to provide the areas where we think are reasonable I don't think that we should be funding or giving out grants to businesses to come into Minnetrista.
Thank you. Next, candidate Charles.
Yeah, so I know that there has been a growth in jobs within Minnetrista. I think the 2040 plan said 400, and I think now there's about 1,000 jobs. I think it would be difficult to have like any large industry or even a medium industry come into Minnetrista because of the character that everybody voted on. I think that was maybe 12 years ago when there was a referendum on where we wanted the future of the city to go, and everybody kind of voted and said we want suburban, rural, and we want the open spaces. So, you know, that would be something that we almost would have to discuss case by case. And where is it? What kind of infrastructure do they need? How many jobs are they going to provide? What about the waste? Is it safe? Is it toxic? How is it handled? I mean, there's a lot of layers to bringing more jobs or more industry into Minnetrista.
Thank you. And finally, candidate Youngren.
I like the development along the Highway 7 corridor. I think it's important for our growth and expansion to be offering the services like the grocery stores, like the coffee shops, like the things that people can get to quickly and easily without having to drive to Minnetonka, Excelsior, or going to Mound, right? I think that should be part of the rural character that we're trying to maintain. But I think we should reach out or help more small businesses like my own. I've had great support from the city of Minnetrista, but I know other outfits like mine who are fearful of starting small companies. And I'm talking about the plumbers, the roofers, the siders, the HVAC guys who are running companies with 4 or 5 guys and don't have the capacity to have industrial space in Plymouth and commute to Minnetrista every single day.
Thank you. Moving on to a new question, we'll be starting with candidate Youngren. Minnetrista has many miles of city roads. Many are in need of improvements. How would you address city road improvements?
I think that goes back to the implementation of ERP technology that shows, similar to our neighboring communities, when roads will need to be replaced. Orono has a phenomenal interface in that regard, where people know what the priority is, what needs to be kept an eye on, and what roads have been recently completed. I think that level of data is really, really important for people to have. So 3 years down the road, 4 years down the road, 5 years down the road, people can start planning for the assessment that's going to replace the water main that's 52 years old, or a road-only assessment, or an expansion of the curbs in their neighborhood that's going to cost them $8,000 or $10,000 or $12,000. That in some cases is enough to not for some of the community to not be able to burden or bear the burden of that payment.
Thank you. Candidate Vickery, how would you address city road improvements?
Well, a few years back, the city staff and outside engineering firms did spend quite a bit of time analyzing all of the roads in Minnetrista. And they assessed their condition and what kind of repairs or replacements were needed. So the council has been methodically working on the most urgent needs of repair and rebuilding. So I think we're on a good path there. It is expensive, and so I think a reasonable amount of bonding makes sense to be able to address these issues and get current on the care of the roads. Engineers have told me that well-maintained roads last much longer than ones that are poorly maintained. So I think $1 spent now will save us quite a bit of money later, not only because of inflation, but also because the road will last longer. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Charles.
Yes. Well, I have looked at that quite a bit, and you know, I think there is somewhat of a schedule, and you have your engineering firms, you have your consultants that come in. And again, good roads, it changes the feel of a neighborhood than when it's a road that's all cracked and full of potholes and stuff. So you want to keep up your roads. There is also, there's federal money a lot of times that can be applied for. There's state money that can be applied for as well. So the burden doesn't become solely on the homeowner. And I do think that I've seen Minnetrista doing that as part of their process. So roads are important. It's part of the infrastructure. As part of the duty of the city is to take care of the roads.
Thank you. We'll move on to a new question. We'll be starting with candidate Charles. Police departments across the region are having difficulty finding and retaining quality police officers. As a council member, how would you support our police department to attract and keep good officers?
Yeah, so I think we have a really great police department and public safety department. I've called them a few times for this or that, or a rabid raccoon in my yard, and they came right out. I just wanted to know, where do I go for to get help with this? And I think that we've got a really good police department here. In terms of attracting, more police officers here to work in Minnetrista, part of it is, this is a great city. It's a great place to work. The other thing is it's a very competitive market with a shrinking number of police officers. Over the last few years, a lot of police have just said, I've had enough, and they've gone into other careers. Attracting good help is always about pay and benefits, and the atmosphere that they work in. And so, you have to look at all that. It's a whole package to bring in good people. It's not just one thing.
Thank you. Candidate Youngren.
And I would defer to the chief. Ask him, do what is necessary. I mean, as a business owner, it runs the same way. He knows his people the best. He knows his market the best. He knows the kids that are coming out of Alexandria who want jobs and want to move down here, right? We ask the chief, hey, what do you need? Are we providing enough? Which I think we're doing a really good job of that. I think we're supporting our police officers. I think we're supporting Minnetrista's safety. And if there are more needs, I think that we need to accommodate those. That's how you bring in good people, is you talk to the people who are already here and see if we need to do more.
Thank you. Candidate Vickery.
Thank you. Well, just this morning, I read an article in the Wall Street Journal about this problem that there are so few police officers graduating, and finding qualified people is really a challenge. I was talking with Allie Polsfus about this, and she said that they had interviewed 30 to 35 applicants and whittled that down to 5, and none of them passed the background test. So finding good people is really tough. And fortunately, the city has just found one such person. But the city does offer incentive pay for longevity. They give a bonus for people that have some experience, or lateral pay, they call it. They get special training pay. The chief has been recruiting at colleges where I think we can get some young, very talented people. And I think it's very clear that we show that the city council totally supports Chief Falls. Thank you.
Thank you. For our next question, we'll be starting with candidate Vickery. So the question is, what are your thoughts and ideas to enhance community engagement and communication to the residents? And how would you handle disagreement?
And handle disagreements?
Yes.
Well, I have been on the planning commission for a while, so I feel pretty comfortable with that. Well, I think the city does a great job of communication. We have a newsletter, we have the mayor's letter, they're on Facebook, Twitter, all the meetings are saved on YouTube. We have Trista Days. The website has all sorts of material on it that you can find. I think the city does need to keep up with technology so that as that improves, we can improve the communication too. And I understand that the city is considering bringing back the bus tours and the Citizens Academy that teaches you about the police department, which I attended, and it was very informative. And as far as controversy or conflict, I think we have very many open meetings where people can come and say what's on their mind. And so I can tell you from firsthand experience, people are not shy about doing that.
Thank you. Candidate Charles, what do you think about how you enhance community engagement and communication and handling disagreement?
Yeah, I think over the last few years, Minnetrista has really stepped up in terms of engaging the community, and the city council meetings are on YouTube, so to me that's just really wide open communication, and people are allowed to come in and speak their mind within a time limit. I think the newsletter, and it's online, and the website is for the city of Minnetrista. I think it's pretty good. I go there pretty often to see what's going on. And then they have other community engagement events as well. So I would say just keep it up. It's been great. It's very easy to find out about what's going on. In terms of differing opinions, there's almost always a place to find common ground, and you find that little spot of common ground, and that's where you build from.
Thank you. Candidate Youngren.
Yeah, I think Minnetrista does do a really good job with communication. As was mentioned, the newsletter, the website, social media. I think that we can always do better. We can figure out the people we aren't hearing from, right? The people that aren't coming to the meetings, that aren't speaking up, that still should have a voice in the community. I'm not saying that's not being done now, but I think that should be a focus. You can always do better. I think that we still have a small town feel. We maintain that rural feel. So people feel comfortable coming in. They know Nick by his name, and they're like, hey, trying to build this building. Is that okay? They can come up and talk to the mayor and the members of the existing council or the planning commission and say, hey, this is what's going on. Do you have any advice? And I think discourse is great. When there's conflict, that means people are listening. They're active. They're here. We can hear what they have to say. That's a phenomenal thing for Minnetrista.
Thank you. Our next question will start with candidate Youngren. So the question is, Minnetrista currently uses a for-profit consulting professional engineering firm for street utility and building permit tasks, who bills the city for over $1 million most years. What are your thoughts on Minnetrista hiring its own professional city engineer?
I think that when it comes to anything, when you're talking about what it costs to do a thing, we should keep everybody honest. I spend a lot of money with different distributors that I have a great relationship with, and I still shop them every single year. I think it's really important to make sure that we're making the right fiscal decisions regardless of what it is. Maybe it's cheaper and we have greater benefit to have a staff engineer. Maybe what's currently happening with WSB is the most cost-effective methodology. I don't know the answer to that question, but I think it should be vetted properly. I think we should go through, do the work, and make sure that the members of the community who care can make that value assessment easily and clearly.
Thank you. Candidate Vickery.
Well, I think that there's quite a complexity in the engineering, there's quite different skills between engineering on roads versus the water infrastructure or sewer infrastructure. And so I think that we're not big enough at this point to justify hiring such a range of people. I feel comfortable with the idea of having a wide range of consultants available to us through that program. But obviously you do want to check the price and make sure that we are getting good value compared to other providers. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Charles.
Yes, hiring engineers for the city, I just don't think we're big enough for that yet. Because you can't have just one engineer. You'd have to know everything. You know, you would still be having consultants that would be coming in that have, you know, a wide range of people within their firm that know different aspects of, say, water, which has always been, you know, kind of a big issue here in Minnetrista. And the same with roads or, you know, waste management, things like that. You need a lot of different experts for that. Do we bid it out? Sure, you know, let's bid it out. That would be fine, as long as it's someone that's not spending a lot of time having to get up to speed because they are not familiar with our city.
Thank you. For our next question, we'll begin with candidate Charles. What services should Minnetrista provide that are currently not in place? Should any service be discontinued?
Well, I'm pretty happy myself with everything. You know, I like the recycling service. I know that there's been a composting service. You have to bring it in, but there is now composting service that is available for residents who want to compost their food scraps and their garden scraps. I don't, can you say the question again?
Sure. What services should Minnetrista provide that are currently not in place? And should any service be discontinued?
Yeah, I wouldn't discontinue any, and I think, you know, touching back on looking at, you know, our own fire department in the future. I mean, that is a service that, you know, if we keep growing, we will have to look at that and expand into that as well.
Thank you. Candidate Youngren.
Yeah, I think that this would be a great opportunity to reach out and see what other municipalities offer that we may not. I think Minnetrista does a really good job with Trista Days, with like some of this cool outreach stuff that people are like, oh yeah, my city does that and yours does not. But yeah, in this instance, I think this would be something to talk to the community, put it on the website, ask some questions, see what we could do better.
Thank you. Candidate Vickery.
Well, this is great because it gives me a chance to give a few ideas. I always am jealous of Orno when I drive by and I see their brush facility where you can drop off all your tree branches and buckthorn and all that, and then they chew it all up. And I think that's a great thing, and you know, I would love to see something like that. I think also the city is on the path of getting much better high-speed internet throughout the city. They're working on that now, and I would love to have that myself, and they say it's coming soon, so I'm pretty excited about that. Those would be my ideas.
Thank you. So we have a new question. We'll begin with candidate Vickery. What measures would you support, if any, to address affordable housing needs for Minnetrista?
Well, this, on the 2040 plan, we have provided for housing, lower cost housing along Highway 7. And in fact, the Woodland Cove area, we just were working on the Planning Commission on a apartment complex there that will be primarily 1- and 2-bedroom apartments. So I think that'll add quite a bit of capacity there.
Thank you. Candidate Charles.
Yeah, I think it's, again, it goes back to the planning and to the future of bringing in multifamily dwellings. That's the easiest way to bring in low-income housing. You know, we have a very high home ownership rate in Minnetrista. It's like, is it 94%? I mean, it's high. It's high. So the window and the opportunity for rental is there, and hopefully that those people will move in and become residents and buy their own home here in Minnetrista. So that's all I got to say about it.
Thank you. Candidate Youngren.
I think efficient and sustainable development are the more important things to think about here. when the city decided and continues to move down the path of maintaining that rural feel while also developing things like the Cove and the apartments that are coming in and the expansion of more housing in that area and in other areas around Minnetrista, I think that we need to figure out where we want to go. And with that information, with where we want to be in 20 years, then we see where that and if that low-income housing fits within that framework. The apartments that are coming to the Cove, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, I believe there's 4 3-bedroom apartments. They're still pretty expensive, cheaper than Tonka Bay, but they're not low-income housing.
I was watching, was he done? Thank you. So our next question will be beginning with candidate Youngren. The question is, how do you see the city of Minnetrista collaborating with other entities like the county, schools, and other communities to better address issues such as transportation and shared amenities?
I think that having these conversations and listening to MnDOT, listening to the county, listening to what the local schools need, the 4 schools that we currently support and are currently a part of, I think that first we focus on what's needed, and then we focus on what the community wants to bear, what it wants to handle, and listen to and hold accountable, say, MnDOT for road construction projects, and listen to safety standards and specs that come through the pipeline and go in front of the planning commission and the board. That's it. Sorry.
Thank you. Candidate Vickery.
Yeah, I have to admit that isn't something that I've thought deeply about. I think that we do have good relations with the school district and our surrounding communities, as evidenced by the fire agreements that we have. But I really haven't thought about how we could work together, so I'll have to give that more consideration.
Thank you. Candidate Charles.
Yeah, I think, being a small city, I think we've already, have worked and continue to work with, and look at options in the future, working with our neighbors and working with the schools. Transportation, I don't know if because of the size of our city, if that's really a city issue that we can address, if that isn't more county or metropolitan council. And I would have to think about this more and kind of look at it a little more.
Thank you. So moving on to a new question, we'll begin with candidate Charles. What are your thoughts about the city inviting bids for garbage service to reduce costs for residents?
I kind of like that idea. And I'll tell you why, is because in my neighborhood, oh my God, we have so many garbage trucks going up and down the roads, and they're heavy and they tear up the roads, and I think they really shorten the life of our roads. I would be totally open to having municipal garbage pickup. I think it would save us money in the end, just on the wear and tear on our roads, if nothing else.
Thank you. Candidate Youngren.
I think in situations like this, competition is great. I think that the value a lot of people get and the value that a lot of people in Minnetrista have gotten for a great many years, up until the recent changes that have happened with garbage, have been good for the city. I think our garbage costs are $30 a month or something of that nature, which seems quite reasonable to me. So I think in this instance, competition is wonderful. Let each individual make their choice on who they hire to do the work.
Thank you. Candidate Vickery.
Could you repeat the question?
Sure.
Please?
What are your thoughts on the city inviting bids for garbage service to reduce costs for residents?
Okay, thank you. Well, of course, recently one of our local garbage service companies went out of business and was acquired, and then I think another regional one was also. And I've certainly seen the level of service go down and the cost go up. So I would think that competition is a good idea, and I would like to encourage that.
Thank you. Now we're on to our last question, and I left this for last because a lot of you kind of mentioned this topic and how you answered other questions, but we're going to give it to you straight up. And we will begin with candidate Vickery. Minnetrista continues to grow. How will you encourage development yet maintain the rural character and small town charm of Minnetrista?
Well, I have been working on that for the last 7 years on the Planning Commission, and also with my year-long work on the 2040 comprehensive plan, which was 350 pages. As I mentioned earlier, we feel that if we concentrate the development along Highway 7, it will help service the neighborhoods that are already there with both commercial and more amenities there. We then will keep the rural areas in the west part of the city as rural for as long as possible. And then, of course, develop around Mound where there's natural development there too. Both those areas already are serviced by the MUSA or the Metropolitan Council. So I think that we can do that way, that it will still have quite a bit of land area. The city's over 30 square miles.
I think your time is up.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Thank you. Got the alarm silenced now? We'll move on to candidate Charles.
Okay, can you repeat the question again, please?
Sure. Minnetrista continues to grow. How will you encourage development yet maintain the rural character and small town charm of Minnetrista?
Yeah. Well, a lot of that falls on the Planning Commission and what they review and what they recommend. And I think so far, I think it's gone pretty well. I mean, I was just over exploring Woodland Cove again the other day, and I was really impressed. I think it's been really well planned. I think it's been thought out. There's open spaces, there's parks being put in. And I think that, there's zoning as well. And so, not all of Minnetrista at this point in time is open for development. And so, it makes sense that it's along Highway 7 because there's roads, there's a main artery there already. And there's also businesses along there, and there's room for growth along Highway 7. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's my thought on it.
Thank you. And finally, candidate Youngren.
I think the people of the community that I've talked to have good support of the expansion of the Highway 7 corridor from the perspective that we are just going to keep growing. Right, we are going to keep developing these houses, keep developing these apartments, developing this middle housing, and a lot of people seem to not want it to be in their backyards, in their 5-10 acre lots up anywhere north of that Highway 7 corridor. But I believe we've doubled our estimated market value in the last 9 years to $2 trillion, which is a huge development. That's massive, right? So I think the real question becomes, outside of the 2040 comprehensive plan, where do the people want to see Minnetrista specifically in 20 years? And we fit within that framework in terms of development.
Thank you. Now we finished the question and answer session. We're moving on to closing statements, and you have 2 whole minutes. And we'll begin with candidate Youngren.
I believe myself to be a person who has achieved professional success through sheer force of will. I'm a person that, if anybody knows me, is willing to put in the work, and I'm not planning on going anywhere. I hope that in 30 or 40 years, I get to sit in the chairs you're all sitting in now. Maybe we'll upgrade them. I don't know if it's in the budget. And watch a League of Women Voters forum like this when I'm 73 years old. That would be phenomenal because I still plan to be here. My wife still plans to be here. We want to raise our family and grow and live right here. I think that I can be a part of helping Minnetrista adapt to changing environments and situations that we've seen over the last 2 years, situations that are inherently difficult to quantify and react to. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business owner, and entrepreneurs are professional problem solvers. We react well to the things that are in front of us, and we plan for the things that are coming and make sure that we are in a good position to respond to those things. I think that is those are very important qualities in an elected official. But I think the most important thing is trust, right? Trust is what makes good leaders good leaders. I think you can trust me to be a good steward for this community, year in, year out, for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Charles.
Yes, first I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum and giving us a chance to speak to the voters directly and to answer their questions. City government is where the rubber hits the road. This is where government can directly affect the quality of life issues that we all have, such as having safe neighborhoods and good roads, good schools, parks to enjoy and connect with our neighbors in, open green spaces, safe drinking water, and a well-maintained waste management system. These are all things that our city does for us every day. And I strongly believe that city government works best when elected officials answer only to the citizens, young and old, that live in the city that they are representing. We are lucky to live here in a city that gives us such a high quality of life, and it affords it to all of us, all people, families, children, and seniors. If elected, I promise I will listen carefully and with an open mind to each of you and consider it when I'm handling city business. I will keep current and future generations in mind with all actions, and I will be mindful in managing and maximizing your hard-earned tax dollars. I will continue to support our excellent public safety department, and it would be my privilege to serve you. So vote for me, Heather Charles, for City Council.
Thank you. Candidate Vickery.
Well, thank you. Well, for the last 25 years, this has been home for my family. I love the feel that you feel like you're up north, and I love that I have to watch out for flocks of turkeys or deer on the way to work every morning. We are so lucky to have that feel, but then be so close to the metropolitan area that offers so much in terms of employment and recreation. So it is a very unique situation. I'm the lone candidate that has experience in the Minnetrista government. On the Planning Commission, I always read the packet ahead of time. I go look at the properties that are in question. I ask questions of city staff ahead of time. And then during the meetings, I always listen to the citizens that come before the Planning Commission. And I try to make a decision thinking about what is best for them as well as what is best for the city itself. In my over 35-year career in financial services, I'm very comfortable with balance sheets, cash flow statements, and in particular, long-term planning. I know the value of a dollar very well, and I want to use those dollars wisely. So I think those skills could really be beneficial to the community. If I'm elected, I will continue to focus on the planning issues that I think are going to be the major issue for the city. And that would include the development on Highway 7, I think really needs to be addressed, of the safety and efficiency of that road. And then finally, I would use your tax dollars wisely. So I hope that you'll vote for me, Peter Vickery. Thank you.
Thank you. Before concluding the Minnetrista City Council Candidate Forum, I want to thank those who have made this forum possible. First, on behalf of the League of Women Voters, I thank the candidates for being part of the democratic process by running for office and for being willing to serve our community. Audience, please join me in thanking the candidates with our applause. Thank you also to the League of Women Voters volunteers, our audience here, and those viewing the event virtually for your participation in this candidate forum. Thank you to the City of Minnetrista staff for supporting this event and for recording tonight's forum. On-demand viewing can be accessed at www.lwvwpa.org. For additional election information, we encourage you to visit vote411.org, the League of Women Voters award-winning one-stop shop where voters can register to vote, find their polling place, and learn how candidates stand on issues. Please remember to vote in the November 8th election by absentee ballot or in person. Your vote is your voice. LWV welcomes new members, both women and men, at lwvwpa.org. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.